Hello everyone, I hope you're all keeping well and using those outward skills of resilience and perseverance as things have changed for us a little bit again at the moment. My assemblies for you over the next few weeks are going to be based on one of my favourite stories. And this is going to give you the opportunity to just sit down, listen to the story, have a little bit of time out from your busy day. You might decide to do it at break time or before you have your lunch, or you might want to wait until the end of the day and have it as almost a bedtime story snuggled under a blanket. And the book I'm going to read is The Giraffe and the Pelly and Me by Roald Dahl. So here we go. Make sure you're sitting comfortably. Not far from where I live, there is a queer, old, empty wooden house standing all by itself on the side of the road. I long to explore inside it, but the door is always locked, and when I peer through the window, all I can see is darkness and dust. I know the ground floor used to be a shop because I can still read the faded lettering across the front, which says The Grubber. My mother has told me that in our part of the country in the olden days, a grubber was another name for a sweet shop. And now every time I look in at it, I think to myself, what a lovely old sweet shop it must have been. On the shop window itself, somebody has painted the words for sale. One morning I noticed that for sale had been scraped off the shop window and was now in its place someone had painted sold. I stood there staring at the new writing and wishing like mad it had been me who'd bought it, because then I would have been able to make it into the grubber all over again. I have longed and longed to own a sweet shop. The sweet shop of my dreams would be loaded from top to bottom with sherbet suckers and caramel fudge and Russian toffee and sugar snorters and butter gumballs and thousands of other glorious things like that. Oh boy, what I couldn't have done with that old grubber shop if it had been mine. On my next visit to the grubber, I was standing across the road and gazing at the wonderful old building when suddenly an enormous bathtub came sailing out of one of the second floor windows and crashed right into the middle of the road. A few moments later, a white porcelain lavatory pan with a wooden seat still on came flying out of the same window and landed with a wonderful splintering crash just beside the bathtub. This was followed by a kitchen sink and an empty canary cage and a four-poster bed and a hot water bottle and a rocking horse and a sewing machine and goodness knows what else besides. It looked as though some madman was ripping out the whole of the insides of the house, because now pieces of staircase and bits of banister and a whole lot of old floorboards came whistling through the windows. Then there was silence. I waited and waited, but not another sound came from within the building. I crossed the road and stood right under the windows and called out, "Is anybody at home?" There was no answer. In the end, it began to get dark, so I had to turn away and start walking home. But you can bet your life nothing was going to stop me from hurrying back there again tomorrow morning to see what the next surprise was going to be. When I got back to the grubber house the next morning, the first thing I noticed was a new door. The dirty old brown door had been taken out, and in its place someone had fitted a brand new red door. The new door was fantastic. It was twice as high as the other one had been, and it looked ridiculous. I couldn't begin to imagine who would want a tremendous tall door like that in a house, unless it was a giant. As well as this, somebody had scraped away the sold notice on the shop window, and now there was a lot of different writing all over the glass. I stood there reading it and trying to figure out what on earth it meant. The Ladderless Window Cleaning Company. Get your windows cleaned without a lot of dirty ladders leaned against your house. And there's the picture. I tried to catch some sign or sound of movement inside the house, but there was none, until all of a sudden Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that one of the windows on the top floor was slowly beginning to open outwards. Then a head appeared at the open window. I stared at the head. The head stared back at me with big, round, dark eyes. Suddenly, a second window was flung open wide, and all of the crazy things, a giant white bird hopped out and perched on the windowsill. I knew what this one was because of its amazing beak, which was shaped like a huge orange-coloured basin. The pelican looked down at me and sang out. He sang, "Oh, how I wish for a big fat fish. I'm as hungry as could ever be. A dish of a fish is my only wish. How far are we from the sea?" "We're a long way from the sea," I called back to him. "But there's a fishmonger in the village not far away." "A fish what?" "A fishmonger." "Now what on earth would that be?" called the pelican. "I've heard of a fish pie and a fish cake and a fish finger, but I have never heard of a fishmonger. Are these mungers good to eat?" This question baffled me a bit, so I said, "Who's your friend in the next window?" "She is the giraffe," the pelican answered. "Is she not wonderful? Her legs are on the ground and her head is looking out of the top window." As if all of this wasn't enough, the window on the first floor now flung open wide and out popped a monkey. The monkey stood on the windowsill and did a little jiggly dance. He was so skinny he seemed to be made only of furry bits of wire, but he danced wonderfully well, and I clapped and cheered and did a little dance myself in return. So there's the house with them all in. "We are window cleaners," sang out the monkey. "We polish your glass till it's shining like brass and sprinkles like sun in the sea. We're quick and polite, we'll come day or night, the giraffe and the pelly and me. We're a fabulous crew, we know just what to do and we'll never stop work to drink tea. All your windows will glow when we give them a go, the giraffe, the pelly and me. We use water and soap, plus some kindness and hope. But we never use ladders, not we. Who needs ladders at all when you're 30 feet tall? Not giraffe and not pelly, not me." I stood there enthralled. I heard the giraffe saying to the pelican in the next window, "Pelly, my dear, would you be so good as to fly down and bring that small person up here to talk to us?" At once, the pelican spread his huge white wings and flew down to the road beside me. "Hop in," he said, opening his enormous beak. I stared at the great orange beak and backed away. "Go on," the monkey shouted from up in his window. "The pelly isn't going to swallow you. Climb in." I said to the pelican, "I'll only get in if you promise not to shut your beak when I'm inside." "You have nothing to fear," cried the pelican. Let me tell you why. I have a very special beak have I. You'll never see a beak so fine, I don't care where you go. There's magic in this beak of mine, hop in and don't say no." "I will not hop in," I said, "unless you swear on your honour you won't shut it once I'm inside. I don't like small dark places." "When I have done what I am just about to do," said the pelican, "I won't be able to shut it. You don't seem to understand how my beak works." "Show me," I said. "Watch this," cried the pelican. I watched in amazement as the top half of the pelican's beak began to slide smoothly backwards into his head until the whole thing was almost out of sight. Look. "It bends and goes down inside the back of my neck," cried the pelican. "Is that not sensible? Is that not magical?" "It's unbelievable," I said. It's exactly like one of those metal tape measures my father's got at home. When it's out, it's straight, and when you slide it back in, it bends and disappears. Precisely, said the pelican. You see, the top half is no use to me unless I'm chewing fish. The bottom half is what counts, my lad. The bottom half of this glorious beak of mine is the bucket in which I will carry the window cleaning water. So if I didn't slide the top half away, I'd be standing around all day long holding it open. So I slide it away for the rest of the day. Even so, I'm still able to speak. And whenever I've flown, it has always been known as the patented pelican's beak. If I want to eat fish, and that's my favourite dish, all I do is give it a tweak. And in the blink of an eye, out it pops and I cry. It's the patented pelican beak. I'm going to leave it there. If it was you, would you trust the pelican? Would you get inside his beak? I think it'd be quite exciting to be able to fly up to talk to a giraffe. But we'll find out next week what happens to the giraffe and Pelly and me. Look after yourselves till then. Bye-bye.